And today we want to talk about Jacob's beginnings as a scam artist, and that is what we want to be we'll be looking at. All right. So we look at the birth. His birth. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Okay, Ladida. He was 40 years old, and then he had Rebecca to his wife, and Rebecca was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebecca, his wife, conceived. But the children, the twins, struggled within her. She said, What's going on? Why is this happening to me? So she asked God, and God said, Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. Okay, who? Who will be stronger than the other? The older shall serve the younger. So this is a promise from God that the older shall serve the younger. In Romans 8, we read about as Paul reads this passage, he goes, you know, God says that the older shall serve the younger. Uh, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. But that was before the two were born, before they could even do one do good or the other do evil, before they even did anything. So this is to say that it is not based on what you do. It is not about your standing before God. It's not about what you have done, right or wrong, because whether you do right or you do wrong, you sin. You're a sinner. So such that our righteousness is just filthy rags before the Lord. So the only way for us to be righteous before God is for God to be gracious to us. So it is because of God's love and mercy and grace. Of course, God can have mercy on whomever He wants to have mercy, be gracious to whomever He wants to be gracious. And in this case, He says, the older shall serve the younger. All right, so that is God's um, pronouncement. Now, we can say that, all right, okay, so from a Calvinist perspective, that's because God has made it like that. All right, he rigged the game in favor of Jacob. From an Arminian perspective, is that God has foresaw the future and foresaw that um, uh, indeed the older shall serve the younger. But whatever the case it may be, it is what is for sure is that God is in control. God is sovereign over the matter. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Esau. Right? Esau or Esau, that would be how it's pronounced in the Hebrew, Esau. And Esau is Esau, his name Esau because it probably related to the word hairy. Now, afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Jacob means like the hand that grasp, a grasper, right? What also want to grasp? What also want to grasp? So he's a grasper. So Isaac was 60 years old when she bore him. Okay, so let's talk about Jacob. Interesting is that my Jewish friend told me that in modern Hebrew, to instead of saying I follow you, Jacob is used as a verb, and it will be I Jacob you, I Jacob you. Uh, uh, let's follow him. It will be like let's Jacob him. So his name has been used to become, but it is to follow. But in this case, not just to follow, but to grasp at Esau's heel. Why? Why was he like that? What did he want? What did Jacob want? Jacob wanted to be born first from the mother's womb. He wanted to be firstborn. Talk about being competitive, right? Being competitive from your mother's womb. And and so that's how they came out. All right. One came out first, you saw, and then the other one like, hey, me first, me first. But then came second. And that's his life. He came second, all right, even though he wanted to come first. So that's the birth of a scam artist from the very start. And the family doesn't help. Let's look at verse 27. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. So Esau was like an outdoor guy, right? He's like the scouts guy, boys brigade. He loves the outdoor, a man of the field, skillful hunter. While Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Jacob likes is an indoor guy. Uh, he likes to play board games, that kind of a thing, right? One is an outdoor games guy, and another guy is an indoor games guy. One was like hairy, and the other guy has smooth skin. So one is like the alpha male type, all right, like the he-man, all right, he literally he-man, and go out into the field and buff and everything. While the other is rather beta, a mommy's boy. So these were fraternal twins that couldn't be any more different. And here's the thing, verse 28. Isaac loved Esau. Why? Why? Because he ate of his game. So Isaac's life is a Isaac. He loves to do nothing, and he loves to eat. That's the two things he loves to do. He loves to do nothing. He loves to eat. He couldn't be bothered to find a girlfriend. The father has to find. He was 40 years old when he married Rebecca. So he's like 40 years old, and Abraham's worried, and I got him a wife, right? And then we don't have much other stories about Isaac. We have him um, giving up his father's wealth to the enemy. And then now he's got this son Esau who loves to go hunt and bring to bring this wild games, right? So I don't know, bear's palm or or rhinoceros, so he ate of his game. But Rebecca loved Jacob. Now, why Rebecca loved Jacob? Because of what the Lord said. But the Lord never said, go play favoritism in your family. You see what I mean? All right. The Lord just tells her, as a matter of fact, she inquired of the Lord, and the Lord told her, the older shall serve the younger. That's it. But then she plays favorite. Maybe because Esau independent, he goes out all the time, hardly at home. Whereas Jacob was always at home, and so mommy's boy basically. So Rebecca loved Jacob, Isaac loved Esau. So this family. So there's two things. By nature, Jacob born a scam artist, and by nurture as well, not very well. All right, this family was dysfunctional. So there's something in his family background, the way he was brought up, his nurture, and there is something from birth, his nature that is all messed up. All right. So this was um, the beginning of Jacob. Not too sure how much of the teaching of the Lord was imparted to Esau and Jacob. The way I look at it, maybe not too much either. This is the third generation follower of God, isn't it? So, once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." So so Esau goes to the field to hunt, isn't it? And Jacob is like masak from childhood, right? So he grows up to cook stew and stuff like that, isn't it? Learn from the mother. So some red stew, some kind of dull kind of a thing. So he said, "Hey Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I'm exhausted." Therefore, his name was called Edom. Edom is the Hebrew word for Edom. Edom is the Hebrew word for red. All right, red basically. So he was like red. He was born red. Um, and and now he likes his red too. So he's Edom. Edom. Now Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." All right. This is this is. I remember when I went for Skytrax at Shalom Skytrax, and there is the beginners one, there is the intermediate one, and there is an expert one, right? I can't remember the names of each of them. There's a big big trail, and then there is the extreme. I think it's called extreme or about the extreme, I suppose, extreme trail. So I was thinking, so they were like, no, which one should we go for? And I was thinking, you know what? Let's just get it done and over with. Right? I don't know whether I'm going to come back a second time. So let's just do the extreme one. So I went on the extreme one, and you climb up the first ladder, and that ladder takes the wind out of me, right? That really takes the wind out of me. And then you flying fox into the into the forest, right? And horrors of horrors, at the end of the um flying fox. So do you see? You see more ladders, and then you climb that ladder, and after climbing those ladders, then what do we have? We have the monkey bar, right? So that monkey bar totally killed me, right? And after monkey bar, it was the wheels, the tires kind of thing, tires, and go to these truck tires. All right, some truck tires, and then ladders. Right? So climb the ladder, and after you climb the ladder, then they sell you 100 plus, right? For 5 ringgit. They sell you one can of 100 plus for 5 ringgit. And that is, I thought that was the best business uh, uh, um, uh, proposition ever, right? I mean, you are selling 100 plus after all of that. So sell me, and so 5 ringgit, you know, you buy a buy for 10 ringgit. So Jacob says, sell me your birthright now, but the birthright is worth so much more than 5 ringgit, 10 ringgit. So I don't know how Jacob managed to do this one, to make this deal happen, the art of the deal, isn't it? And he also said, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? And by that, he despised his birthright. We read this already in um, in the book of Hebrews, isn't it? Uh, that it is just inexplicable. Why would you do that? But somehow Jacob managed to pull a fast one. And this was the birthright scam. So you see, Jacob, he knew the importance of birthright. He knew the importance of the birthright from the day he was born. From the day he was born, he was wanting the birthright, and he's probably been plotting for it ever since. And now he says, "Sell me your birthright now." And you know, I'm half thinking whether this was all of a sudden out of the blue. I wonder whether this was the first time Jacob made this proposition to Esau. I think that maybe by now he was completely worn down, maybe by Jacob, or whatever the reason. Esau despised his birthright and said, I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me? And Jacob said, swear to me now. And he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Okay? So you can say, well, it's not really Jacob's fault, it's Esau's fault. Yes, of course, Esau's fault. Esau, and we have dealt with Esau and how not to be Esau when we were doing Hebrews. Um, but right now, I want to focus on Jacob. Like, why would you pull the rug from underneath your brother's feet like that? And but he is that kind of a person. He has no remorse over something like that. But then, wait a minute, you bought the birthright from your brother. But ultimately, of what use is that birthright? That birthright gives you a double portion of the father's inheritance. So let's just say, of course, if you're the only son, then you get 100% of of um of your father's inheritance. But if there are two sons, what they do is that they the inheritance will be divided into three parts. So the uh, older son get 2 parts, get 2/3, and the younger son gets 1/3. Now, if there are 3 sons, then it's divided into 4 portions. The older son get half, and the other 2 sons get a quarter each. Likewise, if you have 4 sons, if you have 4 sons, then you divide into 5 portions, where the older son get 2/5, and the rest get 1/5. All right. So basically, you get a double portion. But of course, this is just a private deal between Jacob and Esau, because when Isaac is going to bless, he is going to bless Esau and not going to bless Jacob. First of all, Esau is his firstborn. That will make sense. Secondly, Isaac loved Esau and not Jacob, isn't it? So basically, what's going on is that why swear to me now is because when dad bless you, when dad divides the inheritance, you get 2/3 and I get a third. We're gonna swap between us. We're gonna swap. I get the 2/3, you get the 1/3. Deal or no deal. All right. So Esau says deal. Let's do that. That's okay. Fine. All right. So he's got his brother. It's not swap. That is yes. Okay. But that's also because ultimately it's really about what the father does, and when the father blesses Esau, would Esau do the swap? All right. So now let's take a look. Chapter 27. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his older son and said to him, my son. And he answered, here I am. He said, behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. And prepare for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Like this guy, he knows how to live, right? Before I die, let me eat a good one. All right. So that's what it's about. Okay. I want to bless my son. All right. And after I bless my son, not too sure whether my son would care for me anymore, isn't it? Because I've given everything to my son. Um, well, at least I get one last good meal from him if he abandons me after this. Um, but okay, I'm gonna I want to bless you. I want to give you your inheritance. I will tell you what your inheritance is. But I'm old, but he's blind and he's hungry. And so that is what he wants. He wants his son to go and hunt and bring back the food and make the prepared delicious food. Okay, so that was on the side of what Isaac. There's a lot of significance to this story. Um, Many of them valid. So if you hear different interpretation, it's okay. Because I want to interpret this whole thing from Jacob's perspective, from Jacob's spiritual growth perspective. So now Rebecca was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So you just imagine the situation, isn't it? Maybe Isaac was in the living room and hey Esau come here, and then Esau comes to the living room. Maybe Rebecca was like behind the door of the bedroom and was like of the kitchen probably, and was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So it's kind of like this family is just dysfunctional. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Don't obey my voice. Not God, not, not the Lord, but obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. So time is of the essence. Now, of course, you have some lead time because Esau went out to hunt, you got to wait, right, to hunt. Whereas this one is just behind the house, uh, and and uh, and uh, and so you'll be able to get it done faster. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. His mom said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go bring them to me. All right. So terrible family, terrible situation at home. A lot of people um, talk about Isaac and Rebecca in the context of their marriage and say, yeah, that's how a Christian marriage should be like. All right, first you got this, you got that. Maybe go through intermediaries. I don't know, arranged marriage. I have got no idea why people would think that this is the model for Christian marriage. Just if there are, maybe they should have done some premarital counseling, huh? Chris, maybe they should have done some premarital counseling and post marital counseling. I mean, what's wrong with these people, isn't it? So I don't know why people would say that their wedding would be like the uh, prototype for Christian marriage. Look at the family life. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, who were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. Why? Maybe last time don't have good detergent, huh? So the garments will smell like, like the outdoors, like Esau. Esau probably is always all sweaty, huh? All that meat, isn't it? A lot of sulfur, isn't it? In his system, and basically, right? There's a body odor that's on the, because the father is blind, he could still smell, so maybe he could smell the garments of Esau and would say that it's Esau. But what about the hairy part? Esau's a hairy man and Jacob was a smooth man. Verse 16, and the skins of the young goats he put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And so he looks like werewolf now. Uh, he looks like Teen Wolf now. And that is all this setup elaborate. That means Rebecca already had this. I mean, did she made it all up that and then, or has she been plotting for the longest time? She knew her husband's temperament. She knew that her husband would want to bless uh, uh, Esau, and for the longest time she knew this. Probably she has been plotting this for a while now. That it's just execution, 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 isn't it? It's all planned out, and it's terrifying to think that uh, uh, the husband and wife, the relationship is like that, because of the favoritism they play uh, 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 concerning the children. You see, that could be the reason. Okay, and she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. Right? So next, there's an impostor among us right now. Right? There's an impostor among us right now. So he went in to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? John acting kind of suspicious, isn't it? Jacob said to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? You're supposed to be hunting. And after hunting, you're going to cook. And then that is really fast. And so Isaac is really suspicious. Isaac is really suspicious. Now I'm going to talk about why he would be so suspicious, all right? How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, because the Lord your God granted me success. This guy, he's got no conscience. All right. He tells lies, like he's just got no conscience. He will just use God's name like that. It's just like that. All right. The Lord your God, it's not even the Lord our God. You know what I mean? Isaac, the Lord is his God. Isaac has a relationship with God. Jacob, I don't think so. He said the Lord your God, right? Not the Lord our God. You get that? It's like he has no fear of the Lord. He knows that his father worships the Lord. And so now he says, because the Lord your God granted me success. So, okay. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. Now, who else could it have been if it was not Esau? Who else could it have been in Isaac's mind? It could have been Jacob, right? But why would he be so suspicious? Because that's how the family is. For the past, who knows how long, you see. He knows his wife, his wife is his other son, Jacob. And probably he knew they have always been plotting all along. And maybe even this, make me wild game so that I can eat may also be a test, isn't it? Because Esau loves to hunt, Jacob doesn't hunt. So maybe this was his way to make sure that it was Esau who comes to him. And when he told Esau, come here, I got something to tell you, he didn't invite Rebecca along and say, hey, we got something, it's time to hand over to you. No, no, no. He kept Rebecca out of it. Rebecca heard it. You know what I mean? Heard it from the kitchen. See? So he's suspicious because this family is a deceitful, devious family. So there's not just an imposter among us, the whole family are imposters. So Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, who found him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau, because Rebecca has got Jacob covered. Rebecca knew that this is going to happen, and so put fur on on Jacob's hands, and he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So this is like, right? He just got gaslighted here, isn't it? So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" It's like, it's not. Are you really my son Esau? So this is like the third time or something like that that he's suspicious. And he answered, I am. Then he said, bring it near to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. Now, you see, here's the thing, that probably Jacob seldom cooked for Isaac. Uh, Esau does. Of course, Rebecca also does, because Rebecca's the wife. So unless Rebecca and Jacob were in on it together, Jacob on his own would not be able to pull it off. So maybe this was kind of like a safety feature that Isaac, as he's going blind, have to devise to make sure that it is his son. So now let's taste the food and see whether uh, 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 whether it's legit. So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. This is the inheritance scam. Then his father Isaac said to him, come near and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him. Why? That is the final test. Final test. Because Isaac wanted to smell the smell of his garments to make sure that the BO is there. All right. And when he smelled the BO, all right. So I blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Basically, the father said, I'm passing on the covenant to you that I received from my father Abraham, and I'm passing it on to you. So that was the blessing that Isaac gave to gave to Jacob. But think carefully. He meant this for Esau. All right, he meant all of this for Esau. So the inheritance scam. Jacob succeeded, pulled it off with his equally devious mother, Rebecca. Um, and so it's total loss, isn't it, for Esau? As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau his brother came in from his hunting. So he's like, whew, right? Scarcely gone out. This is Mission Impossible stuff, right? It's just like just scarcely got out, you know. Then Esau came in. He also prepared delicious food and brought in to his father. He's late because he had to hunt, where his brother just brought from the back of the house. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am your son, your firstborn Esau." And this time the voice immediately, that's Esau's voice. Then Isaac trembled very violently. Right? Trembled, this is, he got gaslighted, right? He trembled very violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate it all before you came. And I have blessed it. Yes, and he shall be blessed." As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob, basically the grasper, the cheater? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright." No, no, you sold it. You sold it to me. And behold, now he has taken away my blessing. So yes, he did this one. He really did you in. Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Now, reserve a blessing for who? For me? No, not really. What is the reserved blessing for Jacob? Because elder son get 2/3, younger son get 1/3. Right? So, which is the 1/3, Father, you have reserved for me, for Jacob? Okay, give Jacob sons to me. Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father?" Well, how can you only have one blessing? You should have two blessings. A big one from originally for me, you've given to my brother, and you're supposed to have a small one that's for my brother that for giving that to me. How can you only have one blessing, my father? That's not right. Bless me, even me also, my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And this is what Isaac reserved for Jacob. This is what Isaac reserved for Jacob. Isaac said, his father answered and said to him, the reserved blessing. "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be." Not even 1/3. You get none of it. Right? "And away from the dew of heaven on high." Not 1/3. You get none of it. "By your sword you shall live." You're going to figure it out yourself. "And you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." And that's it. That's how much favoritism. Now, you are supposed to give 2/3, 1/3, but you're like, no, 100%. Right? You don't even care about Jacob. And the thing is that Rebecca knew this. Rebecca knew what was in what was in what was Isaac's plan. Uh, she knew what was in his will, and so that is why she put this one. And and this is just a picture of a completely messed up family. Um, none of them good. No, none of them are good. Isaac terrible, Rebecca terrible, Esau terrible, Jacob terrible. In fact, okay, in all 4 of them, the one that is stupid but not morally corrupt will be Esau. If you think about it, isn't it? He plays by the rules. Um, yes, it's dumb, but he's not devious. He's really straight as an arrow here. Is the dad, the mom, and the younger brother related him in? But did they? Is the question, isn't it? Because we're going to look next week. So who got the blessing? Jacob. Who has to run away? Jacob. Who is supposed to be away from the fatness of the earth? Esau. Who at the end had so much possession as well? Esau. Right? In fact, Rebecca should have just trusted the Lord. The Lord said, the older shall serve the younger. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to come up with something. You should have trusted the Lord. Instead, Rebecca's manipulation, Rebecca's tactic resulted in her losing her favorite son for 20 years. He had to send off Mama's boy. He has to send off the indoor guy, the board games guy, to go on a journey solo trip. And so actually, Rebecca said, you know, whatever curse that is supposed to be on you, let it be for me. No, no, no. It went to, the curse went to Jacob, isn't it? He has to leave the promised land. Although God has already promised, the older shall serve the younger. You didn't have to leave the promise. You didn't have to do it. So because of your machinations, your smart ideas, resulted in Jacob having to leave the promised land. To go where? To go back to where Abraham came from. God told Abraham, leave your father's house and everything behind and go to the land that I will show you. Now over here, Isaac blessed Jacob with the covenant, but he didn't receive it. Instead of inheriting the covenant, he had to go back to Haran, had to go back to where Abraham came from. And so that is a great delay, isn't it? I mean, sooner or later, what God has promised to you will happen. You don't have to come up with lies and deceit and to make things happen for God. All right? God, I'm just trying to help. No, you should just trust Him. I'm not saying be passive, be inactive, but be actively trusting Him. Don't lie, don't cheat, and don't scam your way through to blessings. And that is what Jacob, that's what he's about. He is a hand that like to grasp at blessings. So here, in conclusion, the opening part of our journey with the life of Jacob. Jacob is not going to remain like this the whole time. By the end of his life, he's going to be a completely different person. And the reason why we're doing this series is to see how we too can start off as a Jacob. I'm not sure how devious are you as compared to Jacob. Now, this is the prototypical story of Israel. He is Israel. You know what I mean? He is Israel. Jacob is Israel. And he is going to be transformed by God into, if it is in the New Testament, we would say he will be transformed by the Holy Spirit throughout his life into the image of Christ. If we're using the language of the New Testament and the reality of the New Testament. But from this story, well, okay, uh, we may have been terrible. Maybe by nature we're terrible. Maybe by nurture we're terrible. Maybe our family background is messed up. And maybe we, from young, we have a devious mind. Both nature and nurture. How do we end up so messed up? It is not just socializing. It is natural, and it is natural. So yeah, all of us have a background. All of us have a past. And we may have been chasing blessings of all kinds. If only we can grasp this, or grasp that by any and all means. We would cheat in exams. We would cheat in board games, I suppose. And we would just to grasp something in our careers. We have people in high office, uh, people in high office lying about their qualifications, saying that they have this qualification, they have that qualification, they're grasping, chasing blessings of all kinds. If if only I can grasp this, then I will be happy. If only I can grasp that, then I will be happy. By any or all means. I was born second. I want to have the birthright. I scam the birthright. I'm going to not have the blessing. I'm going to scam the blessing. All right. You've succeeded in scamming your brother and scamming your father. And then what? What happened to you? What blessing have you got? You ended up having to run away in fear. You ended up with nothing. And that's what we're going to look at in the next episode. In the next week, we're going to talk about him having to run away and ended up with nothing. And it is at the point where he had absolutely nothing, that God met him. And maybe that is the testimony of your life. Maybe that's the testimony of, maybe that is your experience. You were grasping this, you were grasping that, you were grasping this, you were grasping that, thinking that if I can only grasp one more thing, then I'll be happy. And then you lose everything. And then, or you found that even when you successfully grasp all these things, you are still empty. And it is at that point that God comes to meet you and rescue you, because you have come to the end of yourself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That is for next week, so stay tuned. So the good news is this: and you were dead in the trespasses and sins, but God made us alive together with Christ. By grace, you have been saved. Jacob's story is our story. We are all Jacobs. We are all journeying from chapter 20 something all the way to chapter 50 at the end. Think about it. Think about it. Jacob was here in chapter 20, 25, right? Genesis has 50 chapters. Genesis has 50 chapters. And Jacob was born right in the middle of the both Genesis. Genesis covers a lot of things. It covers, my goodness, a lot of things, right? From creation, okay, to Adam and Eve, to Noah's flood. That's major. Noah's flood, isn't it? The whole world drowns. And then we got the Tower of Babel. And then we got Abraham, the father of faith. And then we have Isaac. And then Jacob was born in chapter 25. And he doesn't die until chapter 49. And the book ends in chapter 50. So you can see that about half of the book of Genesis is during the lifetime of Jacob. Because he is Israel. Because he is Israel, you see. I know that we have focused a lot on Abraham, but consider Jacob. Why is half of the book of Genesis about his lifetime? So I hope that the next few weeks we will journey together to also meditate upon our own spiritual journey from earth to glory. So it doesn't really matter how you began, but trust in the Lord that He is transforming you slowly but surely from Jacob to Israel. Okay, I'm gonna stop here and open for question. Questions. What's so special and permanent about this blessing from Isaac that he can't just bless Esau anyway, since it was a mistake? Works better than the legal document these days. Well, back then it wasn't a legal document, right? Back then your word is your word. And I think that from Isaac's perspective, he was doing this before God. And he believes in God. Jacob, not so much, right? Jacob, if God could be used by Jacob, if Jacob could use God in order to get what he wants, he would do it. All right, and that is why he says, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." He will do that. I mean, Jacob doesn't care about God. God is for his manipulation. If God is useful for him, he would use. But then for Isaac is serious about what he's doing right now. He knows that he is passing on the covenant uh, to his son, and so he knew that he was doing this before the Lord. Why is Isaac the one delivering the blessing instead of God? Good question. Good question. In fact, in the next week, in the next episode, we're gonna see God giving it directly to him. Right? So the Isaac one, not that these things didn't come true, eventually they would, but it was not fulfilled in then because uh, Jacob was the one that had to run away. But God directly then communicate his blessing to Abraham. I think this is also, I mean, to Jacob, I think this is also a lesson for us. Some of you, your parents are Christians, and so you receive that inherited faith, so to speak. But there's no such thing as an inherited faith. You need to, at best, the parents can tell you about God, even trying to pass on the inheritance to you, trying to pass on the covenant to you. But Jacob needed, what Jacob needed is a personal encounter with God. And he's going to have that at Bethel in the next week. We're going to take a look at that. It's a good question. Uh, Parents can only do so much. Eventually, you will need to have a personal and personal encounter with God. I mean, I pray for Evangeline, right? I pray. But of course, I pray, Lord, help us, help Rini and I to raise Evangeline in the way of the Lord. But more than that, I pray, Lord, you, at the appropriate time, reveal yourself to her so that she has a personal encounter, so that she can develop a personal and intimate relationship with the Lord. Okay, Chris and Emma ask, any further significance of Jacob gripping to Esau's heel? I think that is just what it is. He is a grasper, a cheater from birth. Uh, that we are totally depraved. Um, and that trait of him characterizes his whole life. Yeah. Joshua asks, may I have some context on the blessing concept? As in, what does a blessing from your father like Jacob God actually meant for him? So basically, it's an inheritance. Basically, when your father dies, then this whole thing is yours. That is the inheritance that you get from your father, and which Isaac got from his father Abraham. Now, you think about it. That is why Sarah, in part, wanted to chase away Ishmael, the son of Hagar, because then um, uh, Sarah wanted Isaac to inherit everything. And so you get rid of, of Ishmael. In fact, if Ishmael was there, then Ishmael will get 2/3, and Isaac get 1/3, right? And then now, likewise, Jacob should have gotten 1/3 and Esau 2/3, but instead now 100% is given to Jacob. What we're talking about right here is the covenant. So the blessing, the covenant of blessing began this way. It began in the Garden of Eden. God blessed the man and the woman, be fruitful and multiply and fill the whole earth. And then human beings rebelled against God, and so cursed be the ground because of you. And then that language of blessing was lost under the time of Noah, that God renewed the blessing, like you are a new Adam, but just that you're a sinner now. And then that language disappears and resurfaces in Genesis chapter 12, where God say, and I will bless you, and I will make you a blessing to other nations. In you shall all the other nations be blessed. So this blessing has got to do with the covenant. That means to be God's people. The blessing of being blessed to be God's people. Right? And today we have a spiritual inheritance, and we have an inheritance that is kept in heaven. That is what First Peter says. First Peter says that we have an inheritance that is kept in heaven for us. Okay, so that's a good reminder that what we think is ours to give, make decisions for, is ultimately God's to do with as He pleases. Yes, true, even today. Um, yeah, so this is the life of Jacob. John, we will recap this session. Next week, we're going to talk about snake and ladder, and chapter 27, and then so on and so forth. Um, okay, so that's it, and let's see what Chris has to say.